morning and welcome to a special meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Municipality of the County of Annapolis to continue our special meeting of April 12th concerning the 2023-24 operating budget. I was going to begin this morning by singing If You Could Read My Mind. But I won't sing it. But if you could read my mind, here's what is in my mind. On behalf of the council, I would like to welcome our Chief Administrative Officer, Chris McNeil, if I may say so, who has had a distinguished career in government at a number of levels and in a number of senior positions. We are glad he's here, and we are so bold as to say we hope he is glad to be here. All right. We have, all right, let's do roll call. District 1.
Bruce Prout.
District 2, Brian Busdonnell.
District 3, Dustin Enslow.
District 4, Mike Barrow.
District 5, Lynn Longway.
District 6, Alec Morrison.
District 7, David Hudson.
District 8, Michael Gunn.
District 9, Wendy Sheridan.
District 10, Brad Redden.
District 11, Diana.
Thank you. The motion we have on the floor is made by the Deputy Warden and seconded by Councillor Prout, is to approve the 2023-24 operating budget as circulated. On the previous meeting of April 12th, we had two amendments. One was to leave the amount of $49,174 for arena wages in the Bridgetown area rate. And that was moved, seconded, discussed, and passed. And the second one was to remove two directors from the budget at an amount of $294,066. That was moved by Councillor Connell, seconded by Councillor Gunn, and that motion was passed. Of course, as we only have two directors, I guess we fired Jim Young and somebody else, but we will move on to consideration, and I would like to ask our Manager of Finance to begin, please.
So there's some documents in front of you. I've redone the budget book itself. There might be a few tables in the first section that I didn't update, but I updated all the numbers tables. So based on these changes and new information that we received, we are getting additional revenues from the farm acreage grant, as well as the NSPI grant in lieu. This is a result of increased assessment, and we got this email probably the day after we came to council last time, so it was good timing. We did get the J-class roads. We increased the contract price sufficient within $1,000 of what came from the province, so that was great. And then the impact of the ratified QP agreement is about $8,320 as it impacts the tax levy. The original 45 reported, there was some of it impacted the water utility, some of it was on the sewer rates, that kind of thing. So the actual tax levy impact is $8,300. So in front of you, you'll find the updated budget book, the summary of budget changes, which is up on the screen here, and I'll update this live as we go, so it kind of gives you an idea of where we're at and where you'd like to be. I've included some reserve forecasts. These are forecasted based on budgeted figures, so they're the best information we have at this time. And I have included the Sustainable Services Growth Fund, that about $906,000 we received at the end of March. And I've also included the property tax and area rates, the schedule of that. That is as of right now. that's what that would be. So there's not a whole lot that we can change in there. I think the Bridgetown community rate is one. We could change the residential and commercial tax rates. So if those change, I do have the schedule ready. So if council's in a position to approve anything, I do have the rates that we can update, but that is where we're at right now before we start. So that's kind of all the new information. I'll turn that back over.
Thank you. Angela is going to stay at the front here to make it easier to communicate. So, the floor is open. Councilor Sheridan.
So is the floor open to ask Angela questions, or is, because the motion's on the floor, because we were confused the last time, because the only way we could speak was to make an amendment to the motion. So I'm confused today. Are we able to ask her questions, or do I have to make an amendment?
No, you can ask her questions through me, and then if there's a back and forth with you, that's great. But if 3 or 4 others join in, then I'll come back again.
Okay, just to be clear, we are able to ask
Yes.
Angela questions.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Hudson.
Yes, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what Councilor Sheridan just said. So, am I understanding that we could go into this and ask specific questions regarding any number?
The discussion is in the hands of the council. Councilor Enzo, please.
So I have one question, Gordon. So during our last meeting, when we moved the 34,278 of the cost for recreation back to the Bridgetown rate, what did that actually change or increase the Bridgetown rate? I'm still not really in agreement that the Bridgetown rate should pay the whole rate when there's people outside of the Bridgetown, former town area that use that. Like, for example, myself, I don't pay that rate, but I use all the services, and I live in the county. So I don't feel right that they're paying for the whole thing, but as a person that pays county tax, I'm getting it basically for free. So I'm just curious on what that increase is, and I would really like to relook at that portion, if possible.
If I may, that's a decrease. That 34,000, that's a decrease.
It's an increase.
Excuse me, the question has been
Yes,
asked.
yeah.
Okay, so the 34,000 shows up in this table as negative because it's an increase in revenue. So we're reducing the tax levy because
Yes.
we're bringing in more revenue from the Bridgetown area rate. So that's why it
Yes.
shows up here like this. And it takes us to, on your tax and area rates there, it is 0.003% on the assessment.
What page is that?
Sorry, it's on your property tax and area rates. It's an individual sheet. It's got all the rates on it, and the Bridgetown community rate is down below.
Okay.
So that's what the rates are, and as requested last time, I did break out the Bridgetown community rate. So on page 17 of the book that I gave you, the budget book, you'll see I broke out the Bridgetown community rate from the area rate, so it's clear. So it's going from $295,000 of revenue to $260,000 of revenue. Those are the two spots that you can kind of see the Bridgetown community rate.
Councillor Hudson, please.
Again, just for my own clarification, and perhaps others as well. I believe when we started with the initial information that we received regarding the Bridgetown community rate, there was suggested that there may be a reduction in the requirement, okay, of something like $78,000. And on a motion by Councillor Connell, there was some money put back in for arena wages, right? That brought that $78,000 reduction in the requirement down to a reduction of $34,000. Am I not correct there?
No, we're talking
not?
about it's a reduction in what the revenues were from the prior year. So now the reduction over the prior year, I'm just trying to calculate
But the revenues are going down, right?
Correct.
So that means that the rate is going down as well.
Correct. Yes, the rate is going from, I believe, that was what I had up here.
72, I think it was.
Yeah, it was 0.0053 last year, and this year is 0.0040 rounded. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a problem with those new rates, but anyway, I can. No, and simply while I have the floor, is that I believe the reduction in the residential and the commercial rate, and I'm not sure which is which, one was 13 cents and one was 14 cents a reduction of 13 cents on the residential rate and a reduction of 14 cents on the commercial rate. Now, to me, that is just a random number that was thrown out there, right? Because I think the reduction should be applied to where the revenue comes from. I went back and did some calculation, and this is on last year's budget, right? That 80% of the community, or the revenue generated from the community tax or the community rate, 80% of that came from the residential side, and 19% came from the commercial side. So I think if there was any saving, it should be applied that way. And maybe just to explain a little further, if 75% came from here, 75% of the deduction should be applied to that area as well, right? To me, what has happened here was just some random numbers put out that it really has no relation to anything. And I think it should be related to where the revenue comes from.
So it's a direct relation to where the revenue comes from. That's how it is calculated. It's a proportionate value based on assessment. So that's how the calculation starts. And the rate, based on that proportionate breakdown, the rate is supposed to be approximately 1.5 times higher for commercial, but the commercial assessment is a lot lower than the residential assessment in Bridgetown. So it is the very first calculation that I do is a percentage breakdown between commercial and residential as a percentage, and then the amount of revenue we need to generate is broken out proportionately based on the assessment values, at which time then I develop the rate. So they're not random numbers. They actually are driven directly from the total assessment.
Now, to me, just let me, if I could hypothetically put some numbers out there. We'll say this 34,000 represents 10 cents, okay? If 80% of the revenues come from the residential side, then the residential rate should drop 8 cents, if you follow my math there, right? To me, it has to be applied based on where the revenue comes from, right? Not on...
Well, the revenue comes from the assessment. So those rates are applied to the assessment to come up with the revenue. So what I've done is we've got residential, we have $51.8 million in assessment, and we have commercial $8.2 million. So that's why that discrepancy is there. I see what you're saying, and we can adjust the formula. That's the formula that's been used at this time. But there's nothing saying we have to use that formula, if that makes sense. So council can choose to modify where that burden lies. But at this time, we are using assessment as the base because that is what is driving the revenue as well.
Yeah, I don't agree, but anyway, that's my prerogative, I guess.
Councillor Longmire, please.
Thank you. Just a simple question, just because I want to make sure I understand. The 80-20, so the 80% and the 20%. So who sets that formula?
That is a calculation based on assessment. I take total residential assessment divided by total Bridgetown assessment period. And so that gives me 86%, and the 8.2 million divided by the total of 60 million is 14% for the commercial. So that's how it's derived, right from PVSC assessment.
Okay. So it can't, like, we would have to change it and do something like a 60-40 or a 70-30 or something like that?
You can absolutely request that, yes.
And so why is it set that way to begin with?
That's how all the revenue is driven. So we need a common denominator essentially to start, and we need something concrete. So that is what we're using. That's the distribution of the assessment between residential and commercial. So yeah, that's just what we would use.
Thanks.
Councillor Collins, please.
I have a couple questions. In a lot of the categories, you have repairs and maintenance.
Do you have a specific page there?
Well, 22 is a fine example.
22.
Well, 22 is not a good example because we have no year-to-date. We got nothing to compare the numbers to. So how do we even know what was spent, what was done last year? On that category, there's no year-to-date. But then when you go over to 24, page 24, you have actual year-to-date. So we're missing all the public works, transportation services year-to-date. So we can't compare any numbers to know what was spent last year, even in the 11 months that we got. So we have nothing to compare numbers to.
The way I read that, this one, page 22 says this is a new cost center. So there's nothing to compare it to. But here on page...
But it had to be because we've got a budget for 2023. And we got no comparison to what was spent out of 2023. And I was a bit confused, but I think I figured it out. Budget 2023 is actually 22-23.
Correct.
24 is 23-24. Like,
Fiscal year.
Yes.
budget 24 didn't mean, first I thought, was that next year? We're doing next year's budget too? But anyway. But when you go over to page 24, under roads, we have materials and supplies. We've got negative, we got no number in year to date, but yet we put $30,000 in the budget. So we didn't spend anything last year, but we got $30,000. And this is continuous through the whole, every sector has got spots that you can see that we didn't spend any. On page 26, in solid waste, materials and supplies, year to date, we didn't spend anything. And last year we had $6,750 put in the budget. And for some reason they took it down to $5,000, but yet we never spent anything. I don't understand, if you started from a zero budget, and that's what we were told, that staff was going to start with a zero budget and build their budget. Well, in any budget I ever done, if I never spent anything in that year on anything, how could you put a number in there and know it's a true number? And how can you just deduct some off of it and say, oh, this is a number for this year?
Just to provide some comment to Councillor Collins' question. I think a similar question was asked the last time we met when Mr. Young was here. And I think that particular, that $30,000, I think he made a reference that previously we've been contracting that out, and that's why the contracted services number is significantly less in the proposed budget. And that's because we bought some equipment, we bought some patching equipment. And so that $30,000, my understanding from Mr. Young at the last meeting, was directed, we're gonna now provide that service internally ourselves. And so now for the first time, we're budgeting that number. Previously it was contracted out, and that's the number you see under contracted services, which shows the budget changes a $60,000 reduction. And that's because we're reducing the amount of work we're contracting out and doing more work in-house. I specifically remember that $30,000 number from the last meeting, and that was the explanation that Mr. Young gave. And so I expect several of the other budget categories are the same way, where if there's a new number in there that was blank previously, it's a reallocation of funding in the budget. It's not, I don't think it's cherry picking numbers out of the air. It's actually a number that's come from another budget, or Mr. Young has budgeted knowing that what projects we have on the horizon for this year, and he's budgeting an accurate number as to what's going to be required to fund that project.
But it's not only in Mr. Young's budget. On page 23 under IP, or under, no, that's Public Works, sorry. That's good, number 2. IT. Under Remo, on page 19, we're working now off 2 documents, because we have a document we took home and read it, studied it, everything, and now we're trying to cross-reference with a new one. It's very confusing. It's very hard to, I honestly feel if any member of my constituents took this budget and tried to figure it out, they'd be lost. Angela's done a nice job doing her presentations and answering her questions. I disagree with doing it by email, because my constituents do not know the questions that were asked. They do not know the answers that were given. So we're not transparent in our questions. But in my old one, under 19, it's a different page altogether. 19 in my old one isn't 19 in the new one. Remo. I don't get what repairs and maintenance section in all the categories. Because in page 19 of Remo, repairs and maintenance, we spent nothing. We had $1,000 last year in the budget. We spent none of it, and now it's up to $2,000. So again, if I was doing a zero budget and looking at what was spent in my budget last year, I would consider that if I never spent any of the $1,000, why would I increase it any more than 10%? The cost of doing business is gone. But why would it double? And like I said, this is continuously through the whole thing. I mean, I could spend I got my old one all marked up. But the maintenance repairs, I would like to know what maintenance and repairs the Remo guy's gonna have. What is maintenance and repairs represent?
Please, go ahead.
So the 2,000 here is for radio upgrades. So their equipment is their emergency communication equipment for this one. In terms of repairs and maintenance, it could be facility repairs and maintenance. It could be vehicle repairs and maintenance, which I do have on the fleet side. And in terms of the spending last year, it's difficult when we're pulling it out, because I'm pulling from a bunch bunch of different budgets and I have to do it all manually. So that's why the actuals weren't reported. If I look here as an estimate, a ballpark, there was about $80,403 spent on repairs and maintenance in 22-23. There were a number of items that were repaired and it is expected to be slightly over budget, offset by other items under budget, but that's approximately what we have spent in the current 22-23 fiscal. So it is either equipment repairs and maintenance, it is vehicle repairs and maintenance, or it's facility repairs and maintenance. That is what that category includes.
But if they don't have a company vehicle and they're using their own vehicle, we don't pay their repairs and maintenance.
No, we don't.
So that's where I'm getting lost in this repairs and maintenance is that the Remo guy has a company vehicle.
No, he has emergency communication equipment. So they have radios. That $2,000 is actually a scheduled radio upgrade. I'm sure Don could speak more to it if you'd like.
I understand what you're telling me here, but for somebody to read that, my constituents wouldn't have a clue what that was for. And they'd say, why did they raise it to another $1,000 when it's maintenance and repairs? It's just, but even up to salaries in the Remo, we went from 34, the actual to the year date was 33,507, and we've upped that to 71,841. And I'm assuming because he's going full-time.
Correct.
But we said we weren't going to put him full-time if the towns weren't going to participate. So you mean tell me that the towns are going to participate 16,842, and we're going to give him a full-time job, and we're going to pay him $87,000 or something, counting what towns give. If anything, that should have, whatever the towns are giving, should have came off of what we got to give.
So the revenues are reflected in the revenue line. I'm going to call on Dawn as the director for that department, if that's okay, Dawn. Yeah, please.
So that amount, 71,841, would include both salary and benefits. And that is the total amount. And then down below, you will see that Angela has shown an adjustment for the income that would come in from the towns. And I would confirm that the town of Middleton has approved the full-time position. We are waiting on the town of Annapolis Royal to give definitive approval to this being recommended. I can provide additional clarity if there are specific questions.
Well, I just thought we made it clear at the last finance meeting that we weren't going to agree with him going full-time unless both towns supported it. Because why should the residents of the taxpayers of the county pay to give services to a town if they're not going to participate? So if Annapolis Royal doesn't want to participate, I honestly thought we would stay part-time Remo and they'd have to deal with it. Not one join, both had to join. But I'm a little disappointed that we haven't got questions answered to be able to make a good judgment on this budget, is because we haven't had a financial report, only one in a year. We haven't got year end. We haven't got the answers to if both towns are going to participate. There's things that I feel I'm being shoved to pass a budget because we've got to set our tax rate. And I realize that. But I feel like we're being crowded to death to pass a budget that we're not happy with. And I am not happy with it. I'm not happy with some of the things we've done. I read in the email that part-time jobs were given full-time positions when we asked the previous intern not to do any hiring or any firing or any promotions. So all of a sudden now we have 2 people in procurement full-time before the budget was ever given to us. I'm not a happy camper.
Thank you. Councillor Ansel, please.
Thank you. I believe all my things were already mentioned, but I just have one question. So within the repairs and maintenance, I understand that that's basically life cycle management. So do we have an overall life cycle management plan? Or is this just going to feed into that next project?
It will be part of the asset management plan, so it is something that's being built. Currently, no, we aren't quite there yet. We just had the initial round. We had a grant from AIM, and we just got an initial kind of inventory of all of our assets and everything, and getting ready to start forecasting that, yes.
And to Councillor Connell's question or concern, maybe we could just easily, in brackets under that, talk about asset or something to do with life cycle management. That way, when people do look at this, they realize that it's just not repairs and maintenance and things like that.
That's a good suggestion. I can add something in even the front of the document that references kind of a description of what's materials and supplies, what's repairs and maintenance, that kind of thing.
No, perfect.
Yeah, that's fair. That's how we would financially report, so that's kind of the
Yes.
buckets that we went with, but yeah, that could be absolutely added.
Thank you.
Councillor Paul.
And one of those questions that you asked was exactly what I was going to say. Footnote. But the other thing is for the REMO, for my clarification, is that we do have an agreement that was given to us, I don't know when, a couple months ago, with the town of Annapolis and the town of Middleton, and we approved that agreement way back when. Am I correct on assuming that, or not?
We did almost a year ago now, renew our intermunicipal agreement and the bylaw.
Yes, so we hashed that all out back then.
Yes,
When?
and it provides the formula for cost sharing.
Yes, not that I agree with the formula, but that's another question. That's something totally different. Okay, but I have a third question, and it goes on this page, Angela. If you go down to, well, this is just a correctional thing to begin with, to paving rates, the Ward Road is not in District 7, it's in District 11. Okay, and if I look at the fire services, and we've been talking about, well, the town or community versus the county and rates and so on, I look at the Kingston Fire Protection, and only District 1 and District 11 are charged an extra amount. Is that what it says? Is that what it means? It can't mean that, can it?
I'm going to see Shelley. Are you able to shed some light for the Kingston Fire Protection? Is it just billed to District 1 and District 11?
Because we have two underneath, it says Fire Capital All, and it's all districts.
We'll double check on that one and get back to you on that. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Dawn might know here.
It's correct. It's just in areas 1 and 11 because of the service area that is defined by the fire services themselves. And Kingston, as the only fire commission, gets to set their own rate. The other fire departments are societies, and we charge a rate on their behalf to provide their contract. So yes, it's because the area served by Kingston Fire Department falls in districts 1 and 11.
Okay, so I have a problem with that. Because the Kingston Fire Department doesn't just stop in District 1 and 11. It goes everywhere in our county. So I just don't understand that particular part. I'm not, don't get me wrong. We appreciate the fact that they're right there and they're going to help us out if something happens. However, it doesn't, there's no cutoff line that says Kings County Fire Department stops here and they can't go any further. So when they're called upon, do they ask for, is there a price that they send us to pay them out for coming to our service? Just wondering.
So it's true that all fire departments provide mutual aid services to other fire departments by agreement between themselves. There's no special specific bill exchange that I'm aware of between the fire departments for this service, because over time it equalizes out. But it is true that Kingston, in the first instance, only responds to fires within the designated area. So if you have a fire on a specific address, Kingston is the fire department designated to respond initially, even though there may consequently be a mutual aid issue. Does that help to clarify?
Oh, perfect for clarification. It's just I find it odd that two districts would have to pay the extra.
They don't pay extra.
We just paid for Kingston.
They pay for Kingston.
They pay less.
They pay less.
They pay less.
Yes.
Yes, because Kingston says, Kingston as a fire commission gets to set their own rate. And this is the first time that I am aware of that the independent commission has reduced their
That's
rate.
true. Right. I forgot.
And we had always set our fire rate for the rest of the county, basically on par. They generally agree. This would be the first time that I'm aware of in 8 years that is ever.
I remember you saying that. Thank you very much. Okay.
It's
that's
not in
clear.
addition to the other.
Yes, yeah, it's separate. Now I get it. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Henslow, please.
Thank you. So just to follow up, so could it just be a simple adjustment of under all in brackets, say except 1 and 11?
I changed it to say remain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the remaining districts.
Footnotes.
Gotta love the footnote.
Councillor Hudson, please.
Yes, I guess I want to backtrack a little bit. I'd like to go back to this page here, the ones that,
Sorry for you.
the calculation of the Bridgetown community rate.
Page one.
That's on the handbook.
I'll put it up here.
No, it's not.
No, this was handed
Yeah,
out
okay,
last.
there it is right there on the screen. And anyway, I would like to make a motion that the $55,564 be removed from that calculation. And if I may explain that my motion is looking at the new budget package we have. On page 30, you will see that there's a budget of $36,842 for wages for... Page 30.
Salaries and benefits.
It's the new one?
Yes. Page 30 down the bottom, Ravenhaven.
Ravenhaven.
Okay.
You there?
Yeah.
You will see there's wages and benefits there of near $37,000. If you go to the next page, you will see under the sports hub, salaries and benefits of $15,024. And then below that again, parks and trails, you'll see salaries and benefits of $143,002. And I think if you add up those three numbers, you will come up somewhere near $200,000. And what I guess I'm saying is, why should the residents of Bridgetown pay a community rate for recreation when all recreation in the rest of the county is paid from the general tax rate? It's not fair. I mean, the rationale, just because the facilities are located in Bridgetown, doesn't wash in my mind.
I can respond to that, and that is council's prerogative. This is what was directed at the last meeting, to have the extra 34 put in, and that's what's been put in, but if council wishes to change it by motion, absolutely.
Councillor Connell.
And I'd like to point out that I would take a
Seconder for the motion.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Could you repeat your motion, Councillor Hudson, please?
My motion was to remove the $55,564 from the requirement for the Bridgetown area rate. To remove it.
So it's not tied to a specific CAO?
If I may, just to clarify, if you remove it, before it gets a seconder, my apologies, but if you remove it, that money disappears. Is it your intention not to remove it, but simply to reallocate it to the general rate?
That's right.
Okay, so the motion needs to
Yeah,
reflect that,
yeah.
not to remove it, but to reallocate.
Oh,
it to the general
yeah.
rate.
But remove it from the calculation, yes, and put reallocated, yes.
To the general rate. Now, please, second.
Okay.
What page?
Kurt,
This was
read the
the
motion.
last, this was a question, I believe, that I sent in an email, so I
Okay,
just put it
hold on,
in here.
hold on, hold on.
I'll second.
Hold on. No, we need, the wording's changed in discussion,
Yeah.
we need to know.
Councillor Hudson moved to amend the motion to remove $55,564 from the requirement for the Bridgetown area rate and reallocate it to the general rate.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Seconded by
Where
Councillor.
did you find it?
Where do you find this?
Salary on 30%.
That was just on the page.
It's just up here. This was the breakdown. You'd asked me to send you a detailed breakdown of how we calculated the community rate for Bridgetown. So this is what he's referring to, is the salaries and wages for the arena attendant and the public works laborer. That's the amount there.
Would you say that again? As I found the page,
Yeah.
wait, say that again?
So these are the expenses that I had sent to show how we calculated the revenues
Yeah.
from the Bridgetown community rate. This is the amount that he's referring to, is this 55,000 here.
Okay.
And it is for the arena attendant for the sports hub and 50% cost of a public works laborer for parks.
Excuse me, Sports Hub is not part of the Bridgetown
Sorry.
community rate.
You're right, the Bridgetown arena attendant. My apologies. But it is
Okay.
that 55,000.
All right. Councillor Connell.
I'm not going to vote for this because I would take a quick estimate of probably 99% of my constituents would use Milton Arena. And the Milton Arena, they pay to use. The Lawrencetown Arena, they pay to use. If the arena can't make enough to pay their own wages, that rink would close, or they'd have to fundraise. So I agree with Mr. Hudson. I'm not saying it's a part of Bridgetown. I'm saying it's a part of Annapolis County. And Middleton Arena and Lawrencetown Arena is a part of Annapolis County. So if we're gonna put the 55,580 or whatever, 64, against the total tax people, the people in Cornwallis that use Digby Arena is still going to pay for the Bridgetown Arena, for the Bridgetown area to use it. When a team comes in from outside of the community of Bridgetown to play a tournament there, we pay for ice service. We pay rent. We never see, hey, Bridgetown's open, we're going to have a tournament and everyone that comes is free, as long as you live in Annapolis County. That's not how it works. We have 3 other arenas, and we should count 3 other arenas, because I'm sure the people in Cornwallis don't drive all the way to Bridgetown to play hockey when Digby Arena is right next door. So we have arenas that we support as constituents across our county. And if Bridgetown wants to take that out of their community rate, don't add it to the tax rate. Make the arena accountable to make their own money. If they can't make their own money, then they're going to have to close the door. Because we're in the same boat in the other end of the county. If Lawrencetown doesn't make enough money to pay the operators to run that arena, they're going to have to close the doors. If they can't get grants and they can't do this and they can't do that, fundraise. Milton Arena is no different. I am not voting to put that in the general tax rate that my constituents have to pay rental when they go to Bridgetown Arena, same as everybody else. And yet our own arenas in the other end get nothing. We give them a small grant of $5,000. So I agree, let's take it out, but don't add it to the tax rate. Give the Bridgetown Arena exactly what we give Middleton Arena, Lawrencetown Arena, and I don't think we ever give Digby anything. to support the people that live in the west end. We haven't given them 10 cents. So you want to take it out of the community rate? I have no problem, but I am not voting to add that to the general tax rate. My taxpayers should not be paying when they got to pay rental when they go to that arena. If they can't sustain themselves, close the doors.
Thank you. Okay, I have two folks on my list who have spoken before. Is there someone who wants to speak for the first time? Councillor LeBlanc, please.
Well, on this issue, what I'm thinking is it's not just for the rink, it's also for for cleaning the parks in Bridgetown. So I guess I wouldn't vote for this amendment because, but then I look at the fact that...
Sorry, there is no amendment.
Sorry, for the motion, because there's, the Bridgetown Arena actually is our facility. So that's a different part that we have to look at. It's our asset. So I'm not quite sure how we're looking at that, so it's everybody's asset. So, but for removing the whole, no, I don't think I'd go for that.
Thank you. Councillor Enslow. Okay, Councillor Bartow, please, first.
I guess on that issue, I'm waffling around trying to get some clarity on it. I don't agree with Councillor O'Connell to a point, but if we look at it, the other arenas for Middleton and Lawrencetown, they're in an area where they collect their own taxes as well. So if we support this one is county property. That's the difference. But there are people in the county that use the other facilities. So do we want to consider a formula? Either supporting none, or if we support one, we got to support all to a point. But then I would be more willing to go along with a motion or a decision based on that information. But we don't have that in front of us. But I wouldn't say that, we're going to support each one the same because, say Middleton is in the municipality of the town of Middleton. So that's a little different than the Bridgetown. It's in our municipality. So the 55,000. The other thing would be is the rec commission, if they're used to receiving that as a community rate or other, and we take it away, then we're putting them in a serious bind that they haven't strived to create a business plan to cover that money. So I think we have to be thinking about where and how we do this instead of just chop and block and not paying attention to how that affects the whole picture. I'm not sure what that means as far as what we do for a decision. Maybe we make a decision for now that we have to bring back to the table and discuss further, make amendments to it for clarity and for people in fairness. I guess I'm not making a definitive point, but I'm just trying to raise the issue so we all think about what this all means. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Enslow, please, followed by Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Warden. So, we own this. This belongs to the county. Yes, I understand that we got it because Bridgetown owned it, so on and so forth. That is one of the main differences between the Lawrencetown and the Middleton one. So in Lawrencetown and Middleton, I'm assuming, I don't know, that they're getting monies from the village of Lawrencetown and Middleton's getting money from the town of Middleton. And we provide $5,000 stuff. But this is an asset that we own. So, and I would argue the fact that it's not Bridgetown residents that solely use this thing. Again, I reference myself. I do not pay the Bridgetown rate. I don't. I live in the outskirts. But I use that facility. I don't think it's right that the people that live in Bridgetown, former Bridgetown proper, should have to bear the cost of everything for that facility because they happen to live there. I know people that travel not just within our county to go to these facilities in Bridgetown, but outside municipalities. Digby, Yarmouth, if you play hockey, you go to play hockey in Yarmouth or Bridgewater or Halifax or Cape Breton. The fact that it just seems like everyone only thinks that the people that use this arena is the people that live in Bridgetown proper, which is not the case. If you go there on a free skate, just like any other rink would have, a free skate, you see people that do not live in that town. So the fact that we keep pushing these things to the Bridgetown and not say, okay, we're accepting this as a county, because we own this facility. I think that's the thing that frustrates me the most is we own this. We don't own Morristown. We don't own Middleton, but we own this arena. So we have to be responsible to run it. And if we don't want to take that responsibility, then why do we own it?
Put it for sale.
I have to put that out there. Like, this is just a constant argument about Bridgetown, and it's frustrating. So I 100% agree that this should go to the general tax or the county tax rate that I pay personally, because I don't pay that Bridgetown area tax. And I just want to put it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson, followed by Councillor Gunn, please.
Yes, I agree totally with Councillor Engelo's comments and that he made there, and I think he was right on point. But anyway, just on the point of people where they pay taxes, okay? You take Wynn, and this Councillor Sheridan lives outside of Middleton, right? She contributes to the support of the Ravenhaven, as an example. The salaries there for Ravenhaven are $36,842. So she contributes to that, right? She contributes to the $143,002 for the maintenance of parks and trails. And I think basically what we're perhaps losing sight of is, again, based from what Councillor Enslow said, that the Bridgetown Arena is only one facility that makes up the recreation in the county, okay? And so it should be treated as a recreational facility in the county and should be supported by the county general tax rate and not by the residents of Bridgetown through the community rate.
Finish? Thank you. Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. I won't be voting for the amendment, or the motion, sorry about that.
Excuse me, I made a mistake.
Yeah,
It is an amendment to the main motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
It is an
I'll
amendment.
be voting for the amendment. I don't know any, as a matter of fact, citizens of District 8 that use the facilities in Bridgetown. None of them. I don't know, it'd be a long ways to drive from Maitland Bridge, Milford, Bear River, anywhere to use any of them. It's not going to happen. But perhaps, and I understand completely what Councillor Hudson and Councillor Enslow are saying, that it is used by a broader group community than just Bridgetown. But most of those people live within a 10-mile radius of...
No.
Well,
Okay.
most of those people live within a 10-mile radius, in my observation through the years. Let's put it that way. So, perhaps that's where the rate should be. If they need that extra money, then go within that area. But as Councillor Connell says, in Lawrencetown, they use people up that way either use Middleton or Lawrencetown rings. So anyway, I won't be voting for the amendment. I'm done.
I just want to make sure, could
You know what the amendment is?
could you read the amendment again, please? Because I'm not sure that,
It was moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Enslow, to amend the motion to remove $55,564 from the requirement for the Bridgetown area rate and reallocate it to the general rate.
okay, thank you. Councillor Sheridan.
So, look, I hear everyone and what they're saying, and I'm kind of like, okay. But in some areas, I think volunteers are running the facilities, and that could be with Lawrencetown. I'm not 100% sure, so we're kind of sitting here not knowing. I don't know if Middleton is self-sufficient, if they're running without volunteers, and all the extras that they do for, campaigning and fundraising or whatever. So in all fairness, right now, I cannot vote for the amendment until I know further how other facilities are maintaining their own facilities. So that's where I sit right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Warden, please.
So, I'm not much of a hockey player or skater, really. So to illustrate that point, one of my distinct hockey memories is the Olympics in 1991. And there were two things that I remember getting talked about a lot there. It was Eric Lindros, that's the only thing I know about, and the European ice sheets were wider than the North American ice sheets. And that was the first year they were letting all the NHL players play on European ice sheets. And there was great at length and absolutely fulsome discussion about how the NHL players were going to behave on these ice sheets that were X number of inches wider. Now you're wondering what the hell am I talking about? Or why am I talking about Olympic ice in 1991? Because Lawrencetown is not a regulation ice sheet. It's quite a bit smaller, obviously. And for the few people who I talk to who are very interested hockey players, or hockey families, and I politely smile and nod as they talk about various hockey things, I've never heard them talk about playing in their league games in Lawrencetown.
They do all the
That's
time.
here to there.
They do all the time.
I'm sure that I'm just saying I've never heard about it. And frankly, I'm the one speaking, and I appreciated everybody else was quiet while I spoke.
Sorry.
Happens far too much here. Anyways, case in point. So broadly, that's what I understand about these ice sheets. And really when it comes down to what I'm in favor, because it's a county facility and taxation, we can levy tax, to vaguely quote the MGA, to do things that are a benefit to the county. And that arena doesn't just benefit the county, Bridgetown, it benefits the county. Whether it's a third of the county or a quarter of the county or 94.7% of the county, it benefits the county.
Thank you. I hope we're getting close. Councillor Prout, Councillor Longmire, Councillor Connell, please.
Thank you. It's a good discussion, and sometimes after an individual speaks, you say, they've got a point. And hang my hat on that point. As someone who, in a much earlier time, played hockey in the Middleton Arena, the Lawrencetown Arena, Bridgetown Arena, the Kingston Arena, and even a little shinny on a couple ponds in small communities, I tend to want to support the amendment for a number of the reasons that have been spoken about. And I certainly understand the feeling that's been expressed on the opposite side, but I'll be voting in support of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Longmire, please.
Thank you, Warden. I first would like to apologize to the Deputy Warden for my sticking my tone out there while he was speaking. Hockey changed drastically over the past 10, 15 years. Western Valley took over, and the way in which rinks can generate their funds looks drastically different. So they collect a registration fee, and they provide these rinks with a percentage of ice time. And in lieu of that, of course, the finances follow. We know that the fundraising and the volunteerism, all of that plays a significant role in being able to make these ice surfaces float. I am in favor of the amendment because it is a county facility. I think we do need to do better on how these arenas put their financials together and how they generate their monies, because I think they should be going back to Western Valley and demanding more. I don't think that formula has ever changed. There are different parts to the formula. You know, there are things that pay to play on the spot, so free skates and things like that. But when Western Valley took over hockey, which means end to end in our county, it means that it's all dispersed around these rinks, so no one makes the big chunk of cash, right? So you're assigned so many teams in an arena that will play there because they have to disperse it. We used to have an enormous number of teams, and we no longer have that because it's too costly to play. I know for a fact that there are end-to-end in our western region that do play in Bridgetown, but they play for Western Valley. And so the teams come there based on the schedule. So it just has looked completely different. So as far as supporting a county facility, we have an obligation to do just that. It's a healthy activity. There's so many more things about that facility that benefit us. Huge asset. I want to see Middleton and Lawrencetown thrive as well. Apparently their formulas look a little different. If we could come up with something that could be stimulated throughout, I'd be in favor of that, but I do appreciate the amendment. I'll vote in favor. Thanks.
Councillor Connell, followed by Councillor Barstow, followed by Councillor LeBlanc, followed by everybody else who has already spoken to.
Well, I know that the Bridgetown Arena has been a hot topic. I know because I'm like Councillor Prost. I played for the Senior Hawks for many years. I played for a lot of teams out of the little arena in Lawrencetown, which a lot of times back then, a lot of the teams rather played in Lawrencetown. So I don't care how small it is or how big it is. We trounced people in that arena many times playing better hockey because it was a different style of hockey you had to play. You had to think because the rink surface was a little smaller. You didn't have all that room to throw the puck around. You had to be on your game. They hold sessions there because there's kids in the community that can't even afford to play hockey. So they have volunteered hockey gear, support the kids that can walk to that arena. And I can tell you, if I had $1 for every time I walked to that arena in the middle of the night and walked home from there after I helped clean the ice because I couldn't afford to play hockey, I'd be able to give the rink a fair amount of money back. Middleton Arena has had their collection of tournaments, so as in Lawrencetown, so as in Bridgetown. But we all pay for the services we go to the arena. I don't go to play and never did go to play to Bridgetown free. All arenas have free skating throughout the year. You can look on the Facebook page or anywhere and you can see Middleton has free skates, Lawrencetown has free skates, Bridgetown has free skates. But the main thing of playing hockey or we played rugby in there, we played rugby in all the other arenas, but we paid. We paid to be on those teams. We paid when we went on tournaments to all three arenas. But we don't use the other arenas fair by putting this onto the backs of the taxpayers outside of the area of Bridgetown. If we want to sit down and talk about what we're going to do with our rinks across our county, then I would sit down and talk seriously. But I'm not voting to put this on the taxpayers in my community to have it wrote off because they don't want to come up with a business plan. Yes, we own the facility. We owned the Lightplex building. We owned Ravenhaven. We cut that down to the bare knees. If we're not gonna, the parks, we have parks all over our county, so our parks are fairly represented through every district and gets fair service. We have 15,000 in here for the salaries for the hub. So does Middleton have a track and field? They play soccer. They have a soccer commitment to have teams in Middleton. Our constituents doesn't go to that hub every time we turn around. We have money in there to take care of Jubilee Park. One of my constituents pays his employees to take and put in a walkway at Margaret'sville. And when a storm's coming, he pays his employees to go back down and take it out so the tide will take it. And when the storm's done in 3 days, he pays his employees to put it back. But 2 weeks ago, I drove by Jubilee Park, and man, if we had every employee we had down there putting in that boat ramp to get in the river. So once we talk on even ground, you won't hear me say anything about Bridgetown, because as long as we're all getting even. But we're not on even playing fields. If the Bridgetown Arena has to make enough money to sustain its hiring a person put in there, then that's what it should be. If the Lawrencetown Arena, if they got some people that's got good jobs and they can subsidize by volunteering and not charging the arena anything to be there and work the evenings, good for them. And I'm sure Albert Johnson in Middleton has run the arena in Middleton for the last couple of years, and I'm sure he doesn't charge the arena anything. I'm sure he puts his own money into the arena. And good for him. But I don't feel that our constituents outside of that area should be paying. If it's our facility and it can't sustain itself, then we need to put it for sale. Everyone in this county has the right to put their taxes in their own area to make sure that they get exactly what everybody else gets. But it's not that way. We're not getting even distributing of the things we have in our communities. And I said that to our engineer 2 weeks ago when I drove by and seen new Class A put in Jubilee Park. But if you drive out to the boat launch at Trunk 10 that goes in Shannon River, and you drive out to the boat launch in Springfield, you won't see no Class A there yet. And you won't see anything outside in our other parks. They never even cut the bushes in our other parks. So if Bridgetown wants to feel that, because it's out there. I read an article on the weekend condemning me, I'm anti-Bridgetown. Well, come on board and look broader than Bridgetown. We go from Digby County line to Kings County line. And when things are fair, they won't have to worry about me grumbling about Bridgetown. But when we turn around and want to put $55,000 out of a budget that supports those articles but don't support the articles in our communities that my residents live and pay taxes in, and the same as Springfield. At one time, I'll educate our deputy warden, Springfield had one of the hardest hockey teams that came out of this valley. Springfield, little Springfield. And you know what? We always chuckled because I think they all played on every team. If they played Bantam, they all played midgets. And they all played Pee Wee too. Like their ages didn't matter. They only had enough to make up one team. And we didn't grumble about it, but they were one of the best, hardest teams competitive-wise to play against. And that was Springfield.
The Ice Kings.
And they played out of Lawrencetown Arena. They didn't drive to Bridgetown to play at a Bridgetown Arena unless there was a tournament. And they wanted to show us how crazy and hard they were. Marksville had a team. We all had teams through this valley that supported these rinks. And hockey has got expensive. Hockey's got really expensive. And to keep our rinks open for our kids in our communities, we need the same support as what Bridgetown gets. So again, I'm not saying take the $55,000 out, but I'm saying don't add it to our tax rate. They either have to come up with some ideas how they're going to come up with that $55,000, or we're going to have to sit down as a county and say, okay, what's fair to use? Should we be giving Digby Rink a little bit of money because all the people in Bear River and Cornwallis go to Digby? I don't put any effort and any big thoughts on just because we own it. It is an asset to us, but it's a costly asset that's costing taxpayers outside of that area, which they have their own arenas to support, and their taxpayers don't go to those taxes don't go to those arenas. So I am not supporting the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Bartow, followed by Councillor LeBlanc, and then I hope we might be able to wrap this up.
I just got one more statement.
Okay, Councillor Gunn, and then Councillor Hudson's motion, so you can conclude the debate, please.
I do want to make a comment, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to go?
Yes, please.
Thank you. We have the rink. It's provided valuable service to recreation. It kind of expands quite a ways outside of Bridgetown. If we consider Ravenhaven and the trails and everything that are in specific locations scattered around the county, we're paying rates for that use for people to be able to attend. The difference being those areas we're paying for the total, whereas the Bridgetown rink sits into a little different category, as it's a user pay. They have fee for services. You have break time by the hour. If it's not set up to be self-sustainable, maybe that's why we're contemplating this. But we have to consider also that not in this budget, it's not showing itemized in this budget, is we give the Bridgetown Recreational Commission, which is the rink and the pool and the tennis court, whatever, they're not paying. Anyway, $1 grand. How much was that grant? I can't remember right now. So we're already giving the money there, so this is more money. So we should be looking at these facilities, what we're giving them in total, and analyze that from there. The more we talk with this, the more stuff bubbles to the surface. Do we know what the current amount of that grant is?
115.
15,000? So 15 plus 55, that's 70,000. So the number keeps growing as to what we're supporting them by. Do they need that? Is that moderating the user fee so that it's that people supporting them can afford to go there? I don't have that information on how other arenas operate and what kind of a spreadsheet or cash flow they have and balance sheet to see where their monies are coming from and how much they're getting from the towns or whatever municipal units are in. The rink already being funded by user fees. Well, we're putting our input in from two avenues, the grant and then the discussion of this, and the discussion is whether it's Bridgetown rate or the county rate. Well, I think we're adding to this from what it was. assuming that that was supported by some input from the people who run the rink and have all the facts and figures as to what they need to survive. But I don't have that information here in front of me. Just consider keeping in mind that we also have the curling rink in Bridgetown. I don't think we support that at all. That's all volunteer, so that keep that running. And user
Just forgave the time.
fees that they collect from the people who pay to use the fee, go on teams, whatever. They can manage that. It's another ice surface. Why are we supporting the curling, the hockey rink, or the skating rink, more so than we are other facilities? Where is the degree of fairness in what we do across the county? I think that any of these facilities that are available to the public, be it Bridgetown, they got to travel from Mayville Bridge or Milford, well, anybody going to Ravenhead has to travel from the rest of the county out to Milford for that. So it's not, we have a large geographic area. It's not a city where everything is all together. We have to look at our regional distances and say, okay, that's just part of life living in the county, and spread into that part. So if we want to offer these services, we have to step up and take another look at the degree of fairness and how that works there. Everything. I know it's getting off tangent. Motion is only for the Bridgetown rate versus putting that on the county rate, but...
And please bear that in mind.
Yeah. So just thought I'd raise that point. So we could be here all day, I guess. But I think that there's enough of the input around the table to confuse everybody's minds. So I think that, I don't know, when you get down to these specifics, until we have some information saying, what are we actually putting into there versus what we're putting in somewhere else? And where's the fairness? I don't think I can, I don't know, I don't think that it should be left on the Bridgetown rate, or not 100%. But maybe we need to look at that figure in total and see if it's necessary at that amount.
Thank you. We're almost getting to the stage where we're repeating about 3 times what your colleagues said. I don't mean you, but all of us. Councillor LeBlanc, followed by Councillor Gunn, and we'll try to end up with Councillor Hudson. Please.
Thank you. I guess what I want to say is we debated more about the rink than we did about the parks. And the number includes both. And having said that, I'm thinking that we are in a direction that if we do this, we have to do something with our tax rate. So where are we going to get this? So the next thing is, we have provided a lot of things for the rink through the years, a lot. I mean, the boards for the rink, we did all the outside boards, we get something about the mechanicals inside that was replaced. It's not that as a county we put a lot of money in there. We're not just dancing around it, we're putting a lot of money. The parks, I think those parks are the community of Bridgetown's parks. So I think they should be their responsibility. I'm not going to leave from my house to go to Bridgetown to walk in the park or take the river, jump in a boat, whatever. And I don't mean that to be rude. I'm just stating facts, and as other people in council will say the same thing. So that to me shouldn't be part of this amended motion at all. Secondly, I I think that we debated so much about it, I think it should be something that we need to send to the staff and see what we can do with it for next year, to be prepared that we are going to incorporate. And I'm only talking about the rink because that is the issue. Because I do agree these things are mostly used by the people of the community of Bridgetown and a little bit on the outskirts, but did I go there? Yes. Did I take my kids there? Yes. Parks, not so much, no. But the rink, yes. There's no doubt. But I did in Bridgetown as well. Lawrencetown, yes, but not so much. Kingston, definitely. Greenwood, you go where it takes you. However, I still think that we're jumping on a thing that we don't know every information about the rink part. The community rate for their parks should be the same. So as it stands there, I would not vote for jumping into something that I don't have all the information that is given to us, and they would not get the service at their parks that they would get if they're not paying the area rate that they, we have troubles with our parks, let alone. So are we going, do they want to give that up? Well, I don't know that they want to give that up. Anyway, so I wouldn't vote to it as it is in any form at all before I have more information about how we can maybe do a little bit better, consider the tax rate, not talk about the parks at all. The issue is to me because of the asset of the rink, and that's about it as we stand right now.
Thank you. Councillor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. And I hate to reiterate, but the county has put major amounts of money into that facility over the last few years. My God, we just replaced all the boards a few years ago with it. And Lawrencetown took the old boards and reinstalled them in their rink up there. God love them. So to go on there, I never played hockey, nor did my kids. Couldn't afford the money, couldn't afford the time where I lived. That takes a lot of time to travel back and forth up there. People don't do that. And as far as the curling rink goes, we just forgave the taxes at the curling rink. Completely different story. And I keep hearing people comparing Ravenhaven with the Bridgetown rink. It's like comparing apples and oranges, folks. Ravenhaven has taken some money through the years. I think those days are just about gone, and it used to cost us about $70,000, $80,000 a year to run Ravenhaven. And through the years, that's dropped right down. Maybe we can thank COVID for that. But anyway, I'll be sticking to my guns. I won't be voting for the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Hudson, to wrap it up, please.
Yes, I will. I'll just finish up by maybe bring forward one more little piece of information. And as we all know, the Bridgetown Arena is operated under an agreement with a group in Bridgetown. Okay. The county gives a grant to this group of $15,000 a year. It also provides a county staff person for the 6 months that the arena is open, okay, which is 30,000 tops, okay, I would say. And I guess what I want to say is that this $55,564 that we would reallocate to the county rate is basically small if you want to look at this. If this group went away and the county was responsible for the full operation of the Bridgetown Arena, I would suggest that the costs are more likely in the area of $200,000 a year. So I'm simply saying that this amount is really small if you consider the benefit that this group provides in relation to the arena. This group other than those two things I mentioned, the grant and this staff person for 6 months, this group pays 100% of all the costs to operate that facility. 100%. I would also like to just maybe make a quick comment on our Councillor Gunn. Yes, there's been a lot of money spent in that arena in the last 5 or 6 years. Okay. If you want to go back and research, you will find out that the county's contribution to that, and that's in the area of $500,000 that's been spent there in the last 5 or 6 years. But if you want to go back and look, you will find that maybe at tops, 25% of that came from the county. The rest of it came from the fundraising activities and so on and so forth of this group in Bridgetown. So I just want to make that.
Thank you. I'll ask the clerk to read the amendment.
No, I don't think so.
It was moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Enslow, to amend the motion to remove $55,564 from the requirement for the Bridgetown area rate and reallocate it to the general rate.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hand and say yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The amendment is defeated. And I see some signs that people would like a break. We'll just take a short break, please. Councilor John, please.
Yes, I'd just like to, as we were discussing here, a suggestion that was brought up for the new package that Angela sent to us yesterday. It would have been, this is a suggestion for next time. It would have been really great if you would have just highlighted in bright yellow, this is where the changes are that we've gone, so that we could compare the both, because it was brain work. It was really difficult to see. We knew that you had changed it, but maybe in the future we could highlight them just so that we could automatically go to that line and see what's going. That's a suggestion. Now I have a question. My question is, in this budget, where does it state that we have for the position retention and recruitment and the amount of, I think it was 45,000?
Yeah.
Where is this in this budget? Which line? I couldn't,
Which one from the page here? It is up in the council budget under the community grants.
Okay. And
do we have a page for that?
I'm trying.
Okay. Are we looking in the new budget, Angela?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this one?
Thank you.
Under governance, so it's page 14.
Page 14.
It's under the external transfers. So that's your policies for the community grants. I believe there's 2 policies relating to that line.
Okay. So it's not a line by itself.
No.
All right. So it's in there. So. All right. Well, I'll leave that for my question for now. Community transfers.
Councillor Sheridan, please.
So just to follow up on that, it was in another reserve prior to this. What was that reserve? Recreation?
So a reserve or another line item in a budget?
No, it was actually it was in something else.
Was it strategic?
It was something that we said we could use
Oh,
for now. But I can't remember what, it was definitely in a reserve of some sort.
Okay. It was under the strategic initiatives
Yes,
line
that's
of
what
the
it was.
CAO's budget. So footnote 3 on page 15 does speak to that it was 45,000 was placed there that was budgeted in excess of the policy amounts per, and then I've got the policy quote
Okay,
there
so not
for the medical assistant.
Yeah, I knew it was in something different. Now it's going to just be under grants.
Yes, yeah, the
Okay.
external transfers and council.
Okay, okay. So the external transfers are the grants that we
give out?
we give out. Okay, I'm just going to put that in brackets. Okay.
Councillor Prout.
thank you. And this is a follow-up of sorts to Councillor LeBlanc's question. And I've been wading my way through the update and so on. But I know on a previous piece of information, the $20,000 extra for TCTS, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through this and working feverishly to update it. That shows up in here as well.
That's correct. It's in the council budget under external transfers as well.
Okay.
And I can quickly walk you through the changes here. So it'd be an increase. I based all the changes in this budget are based strictly off of this. This is the change from the initial budget I presented you. So you'll see an increase in revenues from the previous budget that I presented to you of $34,278. This is under corporate services, and there's a separate line called Bridgetown Community Rate. That was requested that I separate that from the regular area rates. The removal of 2 directors, so there is a decrease in salaries and wages in both finance and planning cost centers to reflect this. The additional farm acreage grant and the grant in lieu NSPI, this is in the revenues section for corporate services. These are increased revenues. And then the union negotiations, this is actually dispersed through all public works serving departments. So based on a percentage basis of where each of the union employees spend their time. So some is under sewer, some is in water, some is in, I don't think Parks and Recreation or Sports Hub were changed. The rest is in Public Works Administration. And based on an email yesterday, Public Works Administration is where we lumped the salaries for Public Works because we don't have, I want to say, good data on how much time is spent where. And so that the budget resides there, but the actual cost will be allocated to the actual services that Public Works does, and then the budget will follow, and we're creating a baseline for ourselves going forward. So those are the changes to the budget. There are no other substantial changes. There was actually no changes to any of the numbers except for reflective of these changes here.
Thank you.
Councillor Connell, please.
So we talked about economic development, and we had Ren come in and do a presentation, but I didn't see anything in this budget to do anything. So I guess we're gonna sit on our hands for this next whole year with no initiatives for economic development, either way, to put money into economic development or join the rent. So we're gonna just sit idle for a year on that subject. That's what I told you.
I don't think so. It was my understanding that at a certain date, council was going to discuss joining the REN.
So then we'd have to go into either find the money to do that.
If council said
we
yes.
decide to do that. Okay. No, I didn't see anything in here.
Just parenthetically, there are 2 other subjects. One is climate change. Remember, we had the crisis and we had the really good meeting, and we were going to have another meeting. And the other one of interest to me is forestry. So I would hope that we'll have a discussion on those 3 things: RAN, climate change, and forestry, and decide
at a later date.
Yes.
No, I noticed that wasn't in there, and I was just concerned that we tried different things, approaches, and everything else over the years, and I was hoping we were going to go to a separate discussion on that.
And I think most people were impressed with the presentation we received. Councilor Gunn, please.
Thank you so much. I have just a couple of questions, and I hope I don't get shut down. And for you, Warden, do we have enough staff to run the county efficiently in this budget? And another question.
Okay, let's deal with that one. CAF.
I guess you have to define what efficiently means. So as you're aware, Jerry Waltz is conducting a review right now of the organizational chart and compensation schedule for the employees. So we don't have that document yet, so I don't know what it looks like. I have an idea of what he's looking at in an organizational chart. And the council was to adopt that. No, we do not have enough staff to do what's in that chart. But that's a preliminary, and it may have changed in the past. That was probably a month ago I saw that, so I don't know if it's still that way or not. And whether we have enough staff depends on what the wish of council is. So I have reviewed the preliminary draft strategic plan that was developed. If council wishes to adopt that in full, you'll probably need another 4 or 5 full-time staff to do that. That's a substantial amount of work in that document. But if council does not adopt that document, and depending on what happens with the budget, that depends on whether we have enough staff or not. So at this point, I've started interviewing all the staff, meeting with them, determining what their role and responsibility is, or job description. That'll take place over the next month, and I need to meet with each member of council as well to get your input on the staffing levels and those types of things. So probably with this is all put together, probably in 3 months' time, I'd be in a better position to answer your question. But at the present time, I can only give you some preliminary information.
Does this budget, if we pass this budget, will there be funds to hire those extra staff? I guess that's what it all comes down to.
So council has budgeted in the preliminary budget, or not council's budget, but what staff are proposing in the preliminary budget, as well as council's authorization today was to add those additional staff for like the municipal engineer and some of those, that's in there,
So that,
which is fine. But you have removed funding for the 2 directors, which has always been in there. And so if it comes back that you need 2 directors, there's no money in there for that. So then that becomes my responsibility. So do we then reduce services? Do we reallocate people? Do we do other things in order to make that difference up? And I don't know the answer at the present time, because I don't know what it's going to look like. But you are obviously, if you remove staff positions that are traditionally been in the budget, those people have been working 40 hours a week, so they've traditionally been doing stuff, so somebody else has to pick up that workload.
Sure.
If they're not, then someone has to give, and so there has to be some reduction somewhere else.
okay. And my other question, I have a couple of them here. And we have enough funds, this budget will give us enough funds set aside if we run into an emergency of sorts.
I believe the Director of Finance has indicated the surplus that's projected that would go into reserves is that the number 949 now?
That's correct.
So 949 is essentially the surplus in this proposed budget.
That's our complete reserves.
That will go into reserves in addition to the current reserves. And I think the Manager of Finance has given you an updated list of what's proposed. So we are generating a surplus this year with the reserves, and obviously council's aware that our reserves have been deplenished and they're in difficult shape, and so it's important that we do put a significant amount of money in reserves.
So what I'm hearing then, and we could get away with no increase in the tax rates this year. We can get away with that.
That's correct. If you do increase rates, then you're just going to increase your surplus. Go into reserves.
That's right, yeah. And but if we don't increase it this year, are our citizens going to be in for a shock next year? Because we don't know what inflation's going to keep doing.
And council makes a decision on tax rates and spending. So if next year council maintains the same service levels you have today, you're probably okay based on the rate of inflation and the assessment increases. However, if council comes forward next year in the budget and wants a whole lot of additional projects or initiatives, and that affects the tax rate potentially if it's not capital. So there is potential, but council at the end of the day will decide whether there's going to be tax rate increases or not based on your willingness to spend on projects and things. We do know costs are going up, so so you'll see, I expect this summer for all the projects that Mr. Young is doing, what's in the budget isn't going to be sufficient for some cases, and so we'll have to come back to council and have a discussion about whether we proceed with those projects or whether we reduce them or do something different. So the cost of materials, the cost of labor, the cost of equipment, and the number of contractors out there is substantially less. So we just went to tender on one of our capital projects. We have one bid. I mean, 5 years ago, So,
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sheridan, please.
I didn't have my hand.
You didn't?
Sorry. I must have been in the while ago.
Deputy Warden.
Thank you. Fine with the budget.
Pardon me. Going back a ways, we had a couple of preliminary documents about the finances around our sale of the internet project. One of those documents had roughly $500,000 coming back to operating reserves, and the other one suggested that we pay back gas tax, if I recall. How is that, or is it in this budget at all?
It is reflected in the reserve forecast that I put on your tables today. So the sale of an asset per the MGA has to go to the capital reserve fund. So it is sitting in the capital reserve fund. So that would be in the projected 22-23 balance. You won't see it reflected in any contributions or withdrawals. That's already kind of been dealt with. It's in the capital reserve fund, available for use.
Are we ready? No, Councillor
Okay, so now, the snow removal, we talked about having a reserve, and it's not in here, correct?
Correct.
So, what is the benefit versus what we're doing now without having a reserve, or keeping the reserves ready? Is there a benefit to that, or should we continue as it is? I thought that a reserve would be a benefit to the county to have money in there, and sometimes we'll go over, but at least sometimes we'll be lower. And we could just keep the money that's remaining and move on and I'll just take $40,000 as a number for the next year. So if we're left with 10, that would give us a forecast of 50,000 ready for snow removal. So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't see it anywhere. I didn't think it was there. Should we be considering that? I don't know who's going to answer that one, but...
I can speak to that one. So it's essentially a surplus deficit reserve. So we would take our winter control operations. We budget based on, say, an average number of snow events. That's kind of how we would prepare a winter control budget. And then if it ends in a surplus position, maybe we had a favorable winter, the surplus would go into that reserve. In the event we had a really harsh winter, that would kind of offset our costs that year by bringing those previous funds back into the budget to cover the deficit. This is probably the first municipality I've personally worked for that doesn't have one. But in terms of establishing one, this is something we could look at this year, setting up, and we could do an analysis on our winter control for the upcoming winter, essentially, and we could establish it if we're in a surplus position. Again, we could also look at that for the year end 22-23, setting it up with that year end as well, but it's definitely a fiscally responsible idea.
Thank you.
So, should there be a motion to get this rolling? Or is it going to be looked at automatically? That's what I'm trying to get to.
I would think if there was going to be a motion to set up a reserve fund, and the manager of finance indicated it would be something that, yes, that they would look at, that would be, I would think, a separate order of business.
That's what I was wondering.
Please.
If I may, there's no allocation in the budget presently, so if the council wishes to put some money in the budget this year, that would have to be an amendment to decide what amount of money, and probably a motion to pick a certain amount of money and to put it into a new reserve for snow removal or winter maintenance, whatever you want to call it.
Yes. The question would be, what did we spend on it last year, so that we could kind of go for, so I could kind of say the motion to, we had this much spending last year, so we should have a reserve put in now for that amount to start with. But I don't know where to go from here.
Well, I'm wondering if we have a reserve for snow, do we have a reserve for raking leaves? Do we have a reserve for flooding? Do we have a reserve for whatever? Anyway, okay, Councillor Sherry.
I'm just wondering, is it in the budget for snow removal? It must be in here somewhere for snow removal. So could you not just, if you want to make reserve, pull that out where it is and put it in the reserve if you need it? Because it's got to be in the budget to have snow removal somewhere, right? Isn't it?
Yes, it's under contracted services in the roads cost center. In terms of pulling that out, putting it in reserve, we need council's authorization to use any money from reserve. So that kind of muddies up the
6 of one, half
administrative
a dozen.
end of it, but that's essentially what would happen. What we budget versus what we spend. If it's a surplus, it would go in. If it's a deficit, it would.
No, I see what you're saying, but it is in the budget.
It is.
That was my main concern.
Yeah, it is.
Councillor Barto, followed by Councillor Enzo, please, and Councillor Connell.
Just following through on that, just wanted to ask a question. We had a reasonably easy winter, and what we budgeted last year, I assume that there's remains from that we would already have funds left over. You know, if they go back to general operating funds or reserves, how much was that? And without establishing more, we've already created that for this coming year. Am I right?
Yes, my intention would be to bring the year-end results back to council. I've been only working on budget really for the past number of weeks, but in that I could propose based on the analysis. I will say we were still processing 22-23 payables as of this Thursday, and there are actually winter control invoices in that pay run. So I don't know a total amount of what we spent on snow removal yet, but I can bring that back as a recommendation and council can go from there.
So I think when we find that information, we can't talk about it until we know it's more detailed information. So I think at that point, you know, as a committee, the whole down the road, we can bring that point up.
If I may, yeah. I mean, I think that's good advice. Not knowing the number, so if it's $10,000 or $15,000, I'd hate to see us go through the process of setting aside money to reserve and going through the motions and then having council make motions to take out $5,000 or $10,000 if it's a small amount of money. And so typically reserves are for substantial projects or significant one-off projects or substantial projects like water and sewer. And so every time you put something in reserve, you're tax rated. And so you may tax rate it and never use it. And so we just have to be careful we don't put money in the reserve and then it goes to surplus and we tax rated people for it. And then it sits there and sits there and sits there. So I would suggest that we not put it on the tax rate this year, but we have a look at it and see, and not just look at what last year was. We look at like the 10-year average, and that'll tell us what the average is. And then we'll know if it's 10 or 15,000, whether that's significant. And if it's not, then we simply say, we'll know if we're having a hard winter, we cut back on our costs everywhere else so that we don't end up with a deficit. But if it's $100,000, then we need to look at something more substantial.
That's what I was saying, just earmark that so we know for future talks.
So we'll make a note of that and then have staff have a look at that, probably 5 or 10 years, not just 1 year. And then if that's the case, we'll bring forward some documentation later in the year about whether we need to establish it for next year.
Thank you. Great. Councillor Enzo, please, followed by Councillor Connell, followed by Councillor Gunn.
Thank you, Warden. Well, the CAO beat me to the punch there, so I really don't have much to say. I don't think we need to do a reserve, and with snow removal, we need to do an assessment, so thank you.
You, Councillor Connell.
Same in a staff report before we make any decisions.
Thank you. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you so much. Well, my one question that came back, and I haven't been able to find it yet, is how are the monies invested in the Upper Clements properties reflected in this budget? Because we have a lot of money owed on there. Where is that reflected in this budget, or is this just our overdraft that we have with, or not overdraft, short-term borrowing?
It is in the short-term borrowing, so it is under corporate services and it is under expenses. I'm just trying to find the page for you here. It is on page 18 under the expenses, interest on short-term borrowing. So this is reflective of all of the items on the line of credit. So that's where you'll see the cost of that.
So that $102,000 is what we're paying for the short-term interest on that. That's what I'm looking at here.
That 102, yes, that doesn't include March. Yes.
And what is our plan? Is there a plan to get rid of that?
There's a number of factors, and we sort of need to look, we're looking at the property right now, so some of it is pending on what we did with the property for repayment. In terms of principal repayment, no, at this time there is no plan for that.
To
in the
plan to
budget.
replace principal, yeah, thank you.
Are we ready? Okay, go on.
I've been working on how to phrase this question, I haven't really said it yet. So, if we budget for an item, we say buy red chummies in August, but only if it's sunny on the 2nd of August. We have an if statement there. We're going to do this. We're going to buy red chummies if it's sunny on the 2nd of August. And it's cloudy on the 2nd of August. But we've got $50,000 in the budget, but it doesn't get spent, right? Because there's an if statement there from somewhere else. If we passed a motion before we came to the budget to buy red chummies only if it's sunny on the 2nd of August, we would put $50,000 in our budget to buy red chummies. But it would still be dependent on that if statement from the previous motion, right? That we would only buy it if it was sunny on the 2nd of August? Is that stipulation? Yeah, so I'm being very mathematical about the way I think about the if statement.
I'm not sure what chummies are, so.
Binders or snow logs or whatever.
What's the question?
Stipulation. If we're putting $50,000 in the budget to purchase something, if X, but the condition X is never fulfilled,
What happens to the $50,000?
$50,000.
It just falls to the surplus at the end of the year. If there aren't other over expenditures in other areas.
Right.
Like skates for those who don't take an interest in hockey.
So if to use the snow clearing as an example, we budgeted, as Councilor Sheridan asked, we asked, there's money in the budget for snow clearing, and if we budget, say, $50,000, but we only spend 30, the other 30 just goes to the surplus at the end of the year, if there's a surplus. We don't spend the 20,000 somewhere else. Well, you could, but they would have to go back to council for a motion of council to reallocate the fund.
Councilor Berto.
So do we know what chummies we bought and not for the previous fiscal year? And how much of that went to reserve?
All right. Okay, are we set?
No, I'm serious about the money, like we have one day, saying what was carried over. What was or wasn't due.
In that instance, probably so.
In that instance, well, I'm just kind of carrying on the analogy for.
It's a hypocritical analogy.
So just to clarify,
I suppose.
just to clarify that, I know Councillor Collins mentioned today about the financial stuff. We've got to get our financial situation in order. We're obviously behind. And so the information you're commenting on is exactly what would be in the financial statement. So we've got to get our 21-22 finished, hopefully in the near future. Then, as our manager of finance said, we're working on 22-23. We've got to get that done. And then we've got to get back to regular monthly and quarterly reporting to council.
So that's yet to come.
And that's yet to come, but that's important. And so it's a priority on my list of things to do, to work with the manager of finance, that gets done as soon as possible.
Thank you.
And then those things you'll see where the over and unders are from 21-22. You'll see 22-23. And then when we come back to budget next year, there shouldn't be any of these questions because you should have all that documentation way ahead of time with all the details from year to date, and not just year to date from 1 year. I'm used to 5 and 10 year to date. So I'm not sure about our accounting system, how it works, but we'll work something out. But I recognize that, and it is one of my priorities is to get that up to date.
Councillor Hudson.
Yes. Going back to the internet, I guess we were told that there was some major dollars that were out there in relation to Make Ready. Is there still an amount outstanding for Make Ready? And if so, where is that in the budget?
So in order to actually assess and calculate a gain on sale of disposal, we estimated the make-readies. So there is not an amount included here. That was accrued as part of the contract in the year that it was sold, and it was funded via the proceeds from the sale. So there's nothing in here. When the expenses come in, the funds are already set aside from the sale of the internet, and it will just be a reduction in our accrued liabilities on our financial statements.
Do you have an accrual set up for unpaid make-ready fees?
Yes, I just said it was
Okay.
a reduction to the accrued
Yeah,
liabilities.
where is that going to be paid from?
It's paid from the proceeds of the internet sale that are sitting in our bank account. The expense was already calculated when I calculated the gain on sale. So it's been accounted for as an expense in that calculation, accrued as a liability, and the funds are sitting there waiting to be dispersed when the bills come in.
So it's basically coming then from what you said. If you look at this sheet here, it's coming from the capital reserve fund.
No, the gain on sale went to the capital reserve fund. That amount is sitting in our bank account to pay those specific expenses. The 500,000 or 600,000, it was in that range. For the gain on sale, when all was said and done, when that was already expensed, the accrual set up, expensed in there, that went to the capital reserve fund. So no, those funds are not sitting in there, and they will not be a reduction in the capital reserve fund when paid out.
It's in the bank.
Again, maybe I'm wrong, but I've been understanding sitting here that a sale of an asset, okay, that the proceeds, whether it's a profit or the outright sale of that, those funds have to go into a capital reserve.
Yes, but there's a liability attached
Oh, I know,
to those
yeah,
ones.
yeah.
So those are not sitting in our capital reserve fund available for use in capital because we can't double
So
commit them.
they're just sitting in the general operating.
They are sitting waiting for those invoices, and they will be there for when they are paid out, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
So,
Okay.
she was first.
Councillor Sheridan,
No,
followed by
I just wanted-
Councillor LeBlanc.
I just wanted to thank Angela for all the questions she answered through emails. That's why I'm not asking questions today. So if anybody's wondering why I don't have all these questions, we went back and forth emails many times. And I appreciate the quick response, and I just want to say thank you for the presentation as well.
Yes. Councillor LeBlanc.
And I'd like to say thank you as well, because we all received the answer, so it made it easier as far as looking at that. And before we go on, Mr. Warden, if we go for the question here, are we approving the tax rate as is, or do we have a separate motion for that, for the tax itself, right?
Have it almost ready. We'll just
sorry.
need to take a small break
You-
before we have it.
What is it you have ready? The tax rate?
The separate motion for the tax rates.
Oh, okay, so that's a
Go ahead.
separate
Yeah,
motion.
but we'll
what
just
I
need a
was-
small break before that
Yes.
to finish it off, yeah.
But you can still call the
Yes.
question on the motion
Yes.
on the
Yes.
floor. And then the others will
Right, and we'll have time to discuss that.
So the motion on the floor is to approve the 2023-24 operating budget.
So the original motion on the floor is to approve it as circulated.
Right.
Someone will have to amend that motion to approve it as amended.
As amended, yes.
Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Longmire. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you.
Yes. Was that as amended?
That was to put those words in there. So the motion on which we will vote now is to approve the 2023-24 operating budget as amended. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? 1, 2.
Could I have my vote recorded, please?
Yes?
Oh, sorry. I'm unrecorded as well.
Good. All right. It's been an experience. Use that over word neat. Yes, Councillor Connell.
I'd like to thank Angela because it's her first time doing the budget in this chambers. It's not like we are used to. I hope you take some of our suggestions and work it for next year. We're all here to do a job. I'm personally not here to make, especially staff feel out of place. I know they work hard and I know they do their job. And I hopefully will take their respect that we're here doing our job. So it's not to hold anybody to the feet of the fire. We're responsible for the taxpayers' money. You've got to spend it. and that's the bottom line. But we are still responsible to hold the taxpayers' money to be used fairly and honestly across our county. And I don't insult anybody by my questions, because sometimes I get pretty blunt, but I take it very seriously. The budget time is a serious time, so. Because I came this morning with thoughts that I would not vote for. But it was good conversation. And I'm glad that the staff left us to do the deliberations and didn't interfere. That was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. So the option is we take a short break and we'll come back to discuss the tax rate, okay? Good, we'll take a short break.
Thank you.
Welcome back. So this is to be read.
This is one piece.
Oh, we all,
That is one piece.
one motion.
So it's two motions on that.
Great. Okay, Deputy Warden, please.
Levy and collection of tax rate for fiscal year 2023-24. Pursuant to Section 72 of the Municipal Government Act, the Municipal Council of the Municipality of the County of Annapolis estimate that sums amounting to $14,307,124 are required for the lawful purpose of the municipality for the year ending March 31st, 2024, to be raised from the residential assessment, and the sums amounting to $1,243,955 are required, as aforesaid, to be raised from the commercial assessment. After crediting the probable revenue from all sources other than rates for the said year and making due allowances for the abatement and losses which might occur in the collection of taxes for the said year which may not be collected or collectible. I move to recommend that municipal council authorize the levying and collection of the rate of $1.02 for each $100 of assessment value of residential and resource property assessment in the assessment roll, and the rate of $1.80 for each $100 of the assessment value of commercial property assessed in the assessment roll, which rates the council deems sufficient to raise the sums required to defray the expenditures of the said municipality for the said year and any deficit from any preceding year, and that municipal council authorize that interest at the rate of 12% per annum be charged on current rates and taxes remaining unpaid on or after June 30th, 2023, and the municipal council authorize the payment of said taxes to be made to the municipal treasurer of the said municipality on or before the last day of June in the said year, and that municipal council fixes June 30th, 2023 as the day after which the clerk may proceed to issue warrants for the collection of all rates and taxes unpaid.
Thank you. Seconder? Councilor Sheridan. Discussion. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion is passed. Deputy Warden, please.
I I move to recommend that municipal council that set the area rates for streetlights, fire hydrants, pavings, sidewalks, and other specified rates as presented in the 2023-24 fiscal year in accordance with Section 75 of the Municipal Government Act. The area rate shall apply to the residential, commercial, resource, and business occupancy assessment in the area attached.
Thank you. Seconded by? Councillor Connell. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? 2. Thank you. It's been a good time. It illustrates to the people who are watching or who will watch the detail into which councilors go concerning the money raised from taxpayers, including every person in this room, and the care we take. Any other business? I declare the meeting adjourned.